Chair Jayapal. Our entire caucus and the entire country really owe you an enormous debt for what you've accomplished for working people, for what you fought for. There are so many Americans that their city didn't go bankrupt, their family didn't lose their house, their grandmother or grandfather didn't get deported. They were able to keep a roof over their heads because of work that you did that people may never know that you did. And you did it because you love people, and we see that every single day. We're so grateful to you. To the colleagues who gave me their vote and their confidence, thank you. I'm honored to follow in the footsteps of giants like Senator Bernie Sanders, like Chairwoman Jayapal, Mark Pocan, Raul Grijalva, Keith Ellison, Barbara Lee, Lynn Woolsey, and so many others. And, you know, even though I'm the first person that represents a Republican-dominated state, Barbara Lee is a Texan herself, and so, you know, maybe I'm the second. I'm stepping into this leadership role alongside so many champions for working people who were also just unanimously elected at our caucus meeting. Deputy Chair-elect Omar, Whip-elect Garcia, and our new vice chairs, Representative Ro Khanna, Delia Ramirez, Mark Takano, Rashida Tlaib, who's also here with us today, Latifah Simon, Jared Huffman, Maxwell Frost, Lloyd Doggett, Morgan McGarvey. And Morgan and Delia, of course, are here with us as well. And how could I forget Jan Schakowsky? Like Congresswoman Jayapal, I also come from an organizing background, and I think that's why we became such quick friends and co-conspirators. Pramila was one of the first to truly wield her grassroots organizing talents to build progressive power, not just inside the walls of the Capitol, but outside of it. And she has provided a model for me and so many others who will lead the Progressive Caucus in the future. Pramila was chair and the sole chair of this caucus during the last Trump administration, and she wasted no time in strengthening this caucus, in implementing new bylaws, which is tough to do in any organization, but those bylaws brought our caucus together, made the investments so that we could have the staff and the communications and the organization. Pramila showed us that while running for office is like an individual sport, governing requires being part of a team sport. And she was our team captain. She held people together and brought Build Back Better to the floor. She made sure that we actually had the elements that eventually became things like the Inflation Reduction Act. She built our block voting strategy that grew our caucuses, not only our caucuses numbers, but also our caucuses influence to fight for working people. She also helped create critical infrastructure for our team and brought us the Congressional Progressive Caucus Center, as well as a political action committee, the Progressive Caucus PAC. That's a lot. That's a lot for a person to do. Thank you so much for that. And those efforts had an impact. It was the Progressive Caucus working with those groups that held the line over and over, that brought Build Back Better through the House and brought us the Inflation Reduction Act, which had the biggest climate investments in American history, as well as price negotiation for critical medicines and drugs, and a huge victory for the people over Big Pharma. It was the Progressive Caucus that helped influence and pass the landmark American Rescue Plan, and it was the Progressive Caucus that laid the foundation for the Biden-Harris administration's executive action agenda. It was because of the Progressive Caucus members and their leadership that we had the cancellation of over $167 billion in student debt. We had guaranteed overtime for millions more American workers being put into effect by the Biden administration. The Biden administration established an Office of Gun Violence Prevention because of the advocacy of our caucus and our members. None of this would have happened not only without the Progressive Caucus, but also without Chairwoman Jayapal's leadership. In fact, I believe that if the Democratic Party, and this is a little off my script, if the Democratic Party was a little bit more like Chairwoman Jayapal and a little less like Joe Manchin, I think we would have won this election. I think we would have won this election. Because I hear pundit after pundit talking about how the Democratic Party should focus more on wages, housing, and childcare. Well, guess what? It was the Progressive Caucus that brought to the floor, over our own party's opposition at times, wages, housing, and childcare. And if we had passed wages, housing, and childcare because they were progressive priorities, I think that working people would have showed up to the polls in much greater numbers. And that is exactly what the Progressive Caucus has to stay focused on. Because we lost a general election that we should have won. Our party has a tough road ahead. And I want to make it clear. The members of the Progressive Caucus are those who are best prepared to reform the Democratic Party. It is Progressive Caucus members who know how to stand up to CEOs who make more and more money while they pay their workers less and less. It is Progressive Caucus members who have the experience of standing up to special interest groups who spend millions of dollars to influence our elections. It is Progressive Caucus members who know how to stand for peace. It is Progressive Caucus members who stand up to bullies and fraudsters and the cheats who try to scapegoat our communities. Trump's entire campaign was built on nothing but lies, and it is Progressive Caucus members who are unbought and unbossed truth tellers. The GOP campaigned and won on a propaganda-fueled lie to the American people. They said over and over and over again that it was immigrants or people of color or trans people or whoever that were to blame for our economic problems. But the Progressive Caucus clearly says it wasn't a trans person who denied your health insurance claim. It was a giant health insurance company that has gone unregulated by the Republican majority. It was not an asylum seeker that raised your rent. It was a Wall Street hedge fund that did, just like the Wall Street hedge funds CEOs that Trump is trying to fill his cabinet up with. The truth is the GOP doesn't give a damn about working people. They just pretend to. They distract us with bigoted culture war propaganda while they pick the pockets of hardworking Americans. But it's those hardworking Americans that we have to fully bring back into the fold, not just of the Democratic Party, but back into the fold of engaging in our politics. For decades, working class people and the entire country associated the Democratic Party with standing up for working class people. That started to change during the Tea Party wave in this country. That reputation, by the data and by the numbers, that reputation has eroded. The Progressive Caucus is going to bring our working people first reputation back to the Democrats. Our former chair of this caucus, Keith Ellison, once said right before the 2016 election, if you aren't talking about growing people's paychecks, you ain't talking about nothing. And I think that's what it's going to take for us to win elections, for us to hold every part of this country across geography, across race, across ideology, and to not stand for injustice and oppression. That's what the Democratic Party needs, and that's what our country desperately needs. As the first CPC chair from a Republican-controlled state or representing one, I'm used to fighting against extremist, egocentric autocrats. I've seen firsthand how people suffer under extremist policies that do nothing to address the rent or the grocery bill or child care. It will be our job to be defense against extreme policies from Trump and his billionaire friends, but it will also be up to the CPC to build a vision of a Democratic Party that's a working people's party. And it'll be the CPC members who make all that difference in the years to come. Thank you all very much.